This intro is for one person and one person only. It is for one Stacey Keenan, the actress.
Oh,
now
from Step by Step.
Look, listen, Stacey Keenan, who's now a DA in Los Angeles, has outed herself as a true crime obsessed fan. She is not on social media anywhere.
No.
This is just a hello and hi, and I loved My Two Dads so much. I loved My Two Dads so
I
much.
loved you on Step by Step. We watched different television shows growing up.
That's it. I love you and thank you for being here.
Hey, Stacey. Thanks for doing the good work. We need you out there.
Yes. Hi, Julian Benzavalli.
Hey, Patrick Hines.
Oh, fam. Hey, listen up. Well, I would really love
Listen
it.
up.
Listen up.
No. Start over. Start over.
Hey, fam. How you doing?
There you go.
Oh, yeah. I really want you to join the Facebook group. That's
Okay.
all. I want you to join the Facebook group. There's like over 50,000 people in the group. It's all just like fun people making friends.
Yeah.
They're doing meetups.
There's the Salt Lake City meetup, I believe.
I was just going to say the Salt Lake City group is doing their brunch meetup like on the 29th if you want to go.
Okay. Hey, Salt Lake City.
But it's just a really fun place. It's where we share our episodes. It's where, it's just like your TCO fam in there, like getting to know each other. It's
Yeah.
True Crime Obsessed podcast discussion group. Go check it out.
That's right.
And join us on the Patreon where not only every week do you get a full ad-free bonus episode, we just did our first ever drag bingo.
Drag bingo,
Which
yes.
we're doing monthly now, and we're going to extend it because we only got to play like 5 games last time.
Yeah, not enough bingo for my liking.
And we took the prizes so seriously, we made like gift packs.
It was really, really, really fun.
We had
I have
a
to say.
Jillian gift pack. It was
can't believe
amazing.
it.
And like we had boozy gift packs and we had Golden Girls gift packs. But we're doing like fun cocktail classes, but you get all the extra bonus episodes. You get ad-free versions of these episodes.
Yeah, we're doing Love Has Won now. We figured out how to do The Curious Case in Natalia Grace, so you're getting all 12 episodes of that bad boy. Yeah, we do like all the wild crime series.
Yeah.
And,
It's everything on Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max. The Love Has Won is outrageous.
I know.
It is truly I think it is the craziest thing we've ever covered.
I agree. I mean, that's why it's been it's like wild. Well, anyway, we have some things to focus on right now, but we will get to Love Has Won in the second recording today.
All right, what are we talking about today?
So it's called Candy and Betty. It's like a special, like documentary special that's on HBO Max, I believe.
People Magazine investigates.
Yeah, sometimes they investigate things.
Who knew?
But I was really glad to find this because I couldn't find a documentary about the story that I think is so wild. The murder of Betty Gore.
In this quiet little suburban house on this quiet little suburban street, you have a bloodbath that looks like Manson.
The axe marks counted to 41 total.
It sounds kind of like a bad horror movie.
My brother had answered the phone call, and the guy on the end of the line said I killed her.
Are we dealing with a psychopath?
She's having an affair with somebody's husband. Somebody ends up dead.
The events of Friday, June 13th, 1980, and the ensuing trial continue to capture public attention.
Pleading guilty or not?
Not guilty. Not guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, we have quite a story to tell.
We opened with him saying that this case caught our attention because this is the story of, quote, good church-going people who got caught up in this awful, senseless, brutal murder.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Can we stop saying this? Because religion doesn't always equal good. And it's like, how many documentaries have we covered where someone was like posing as a pastor?
Yeah.
It's such an easy cover. Give me a break. Right. But I do want to say, and also not all religious people.
What?
I'm just
She
saying.
has had it. Julia's really had it today, everybody.
It's an easy cover. So don't get fooled by it.
Remember Father Heal Me?
Yes, I do remember. But I do want to say, I think it's important. Betty's family is here and telling her story, and that's really important. Like her sister-in-law and her friends. So there's a lot of Betty here. And this show, like FX did one and HBO did one, dramatized.
Biel.
Yeah, like dramatized version. Like Jesse Plemons was in it of this. So it's really nice to hear Betty's story told by the people who loved her because a lot of it got lost and I love Jesse Plemons, but like a lot of it got lost.
That?
He's Landry from Friday Night Lights. He's just in Killers of the Flower Moon.
Who does he play in the show?
He plays Alan, Betty's husband.
Piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I think that one of the reasons also that this story was covered so much is because it happens on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, shut up. Who cares? What a coincidence. Let's not
You just looked me in the eye and told me to shut up.
I just meant the royal.
Yeah.
Let's get to that because I have things to say about all this.
All right.
So we're in Norwich, Kansas.
Growing up in Norwich, Kansas, it was just great. The town was 500 people. It had a bank, had a grocery store, had a nice little cafe, and everybody knew everybody.
everyone knew everybody.
The whole idea is it's a very small town. It's like a one stoplight town where everybody knew everybody was friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And we meet Betty's brother, Ron Pomeroy.
Yeah. And he really explains their life growing up. It was a family of 5. Their mom, Bertha, their dad, Bob. Richard was the younger brother. Ron was the middle. And Betty was the oldest. And Richard is also here.
Yes. And they grew up on what was their grandparents' farm. Like, we get the sense that these people had been here forever. We learned there was like no indoor plumbing.
Yeah, they were like real salt of the earth people because they all always had a job to do growing up on a farm. You know, they were always like all hands on deck, everyone. It was like a real team effort. And they say like they didn't have any running water. And at one point, 'cause they had like an outhouse.
I mean, they didn't have any running water or indoor plumbing.
One of her brothers says it was a really long walk to the outhouse during the winter. Like, this is no joke.
I gotta tell you, we are smack dab in the middle of winter right now. I know it's your favorite time of year.
Yeah.
It is so cold.
It's been really cold.
Walking from my heated bedroom to my heated bathroom is too far. If I lived on this farm in a day and age in like the middle of the country where it is balls freezing, I would not go to the bathroom from October to May.
I don't think that's true.
I would just, you know what? I would have invented indoor plumbing.
You either would have just become like a plumbing genius because you would have you couldn't have taken it much longer.
Believing in me.
Or you would have gotten kicked out of the house.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Oh,
There's no middle ground.
Like, you see it's too cold, Jillian. It's too cold.
It is cold.
It's your fault.
It is.
Because you're a witch and
Join
you love the
club.
winter.
My birthday is the solstice. I don't know what to tell you.
I know.
It's okay.
I'm really giving you a lot of shit for it this year.
I've been blamed for a lot of things.
Yeah.
The winter thing I can't really explain. You know, there's truth
and
to...
you know what? Most of the other stuff you didn't do either.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Betty was very involved in school growing up. She loved the choir, the student council, like anything that got her involved with other people.
Which I love that about her. Like, that's the reason I became a drama club kid. It wasn't like I had like Oscars in my future.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like an opportunity to like meet
Who
other
are you,
kids.
Marissa Tomei? Come on, my cousin Vinny.
I know. You know, there's the theory is that she didn't actually win that Oscar.
That is such bullshit.
It's such bullshit.
She earned every inch of that thing. And if you don't believe me, go watch that movie again. It's
I know.
excellent.
She's excellent.
It's excellent, and she's excellent in it.
But it's also why I played the sports. I even like the sports because I got to be around the other kids.
Yeah.
You know?
How long did that last?
Until high school.
What sport were you playing?
Soccer. I was a fullback because I was the chubby kid. You don't have to do a lot of running, but I was really good at the fullback. I blocked a lot of goals.
Defense? Oh, so
it's the defense. Yeah, you don't get the glory of the center striker.
Okay.
But you do.
Look at you.
You do. But you do get to be on the field.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You do get to you're the last line of defense. It's like you then the goalie.
And how did that work out?
I was pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
I was pretty good.
God, that would stress me out so much. Stress me out so much. Pat Pomeroy is here, and she's Betty Gore's sister-in-law. And she says something that I think is so important to note.
The first thing that you saw about Betty was her smile. It was beautiful. She had just a warmness about her. She was easy to get to know, and she was a very caring person.
Betty was super warm and easy to get to know, and she had this amazing smile. And I think that's really important because all of these like dramatized shows and all the other stories that are out there about her sort of make her seem like this boring Debbie Downer nightmare.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that that's not who she was, and there were definitely like mental health issues here, like postpartum depression that we'll get into.
Yes.
So this whole like, oh, there's Betty moping again.
Right.
And like, you know, Alan had to have a wandering eye because she was such a bummer. Like that's not real.
No,
that's not true.
No. And
it's very disrespectful.
Well,
to
because
her.
we also learn when she gets pregnant, like she loves her kids. She loves being a mom. It's interesting too because we get no video footage of her at all. Like we're on Patreon right now, we're covering the 12th victim, which takes place in the 50s, and there is so much footage of these people that I'm not.
They were like learning to use the cameras as it was happening.
Literally,
truly.
I mean that's literally true.
Yeah.
But I'm like not used to having these documentaries about these people where you never really get to see them walking. You never see them animated in any way.
Yeah.
So we really do only see her in pictures, but she seems like a gas to me.
Yeah, and you know, like she had dreams of becoming a teacher. So again, loved kids and loved being around people. And so she went to college for that. And while in college, she needed a math tutor. And she was always great at math, but for some reason she needed a little extra help. And I would just like to make a note here.
Yeah.
People in school or like with kids in school, can I just make a quick PSA?
Well, you're looking at one right here.
Extra help helped me so much.
Daisy
like, it's
has
not
tutoring
just a
3 times
name.
a week.
The tutors and extra help. And it took me a really long time to learn that. But once I was like medicated and realized it was ADHD and like in college, like anytime there was office hours or extra help, I always had tutors growing up because being undiagnosed, like I always needed that. But like once I knew how to use that resource that was offered to me. Let me tell you, it was invaluable. It changed everything. That's all. Just a little PSA, do it. And even if you think I'll get it, Betty realized I kind of could use some help in math, and she took the extra help. I'm just saying it can be invaluable no matter how much you think you need it.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason.
It also just tells us about Betty because wanting to be a teacher is just such a noble thing.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? It's she just wants to give back to the kids and give back to the community. It really tells us something about her.
How could she teach math if she's struggling with it herself?
Exactly.
Smart.
But we learned that she gets more than just an education. She got her MRS.
What is an MRS?
It's the old. I think it's a thing we don't say anymore because it's kind of
I was
misogynistic.
Mrs.
Well,
MRS?
You don't go to school for your MBA. You go for your MRS.
Oh, the fuck out of here with that.
I didn't.
MRS.
She got her MRS.
But that, when was the last? I don't even think they referenced that in Mad Men.
No.
When was that a thing?
But it's true. She met her husband. She met Alan. Alan is her tutor.
Yeah, Alan was the math tutor, and she recognized he was really smart. He was even as her brother says, he was destined to go bigger and better. He was just a super smart guy.
And he ends up being a piece of shit, but everybody still speaks so nicely about him.
Well,
I know.
Get there. So it's 1970, a year after graduation. Betty and Alan get married.
Yes.
And 3 years later, Betty gets pregnant. And we hear all these beautiful stories
pregnancy, honestly, she glowed through it. And then when Elisa was born, Betty just lit up. Pride and joy.
Of course, being the first grandchild, my mom was just ecstatic.
And their first daughter is Elisa. And Betty, just people are saying, she lit up. Elisa was her pride and joy.
Yeah, and so with the growing family, Alan accepts a job with a tech firm in Dallas. Didn't you say he worked for Texas Instruments?
Well, because this guy, Jim Atkinson, who's the co-author, I guess, of this book, is tech was booming in Dallas. It was 1973. I was like, what? And they're they called it the Silicon Prairie. And I'm wait, what? And then I was like, wait. The Texas Instruments calculator, that must have been where it took me a second for the pieces to slowly fall into place in my brain. But I was like, oh, right, the TI-83 or whatever fancy math calculator
because you covered this in one of the after parties, and we were saying the Texas Instruments were the graphing calculators that I couldn't afford. I was one of the poor kids who had to use the ones that the teachers had in the classroom that you couldn't take out of the classroom.
Yeah, but they all had names on them. I was always breaking because they came with a little case that they lived in the case,
and,
a cover.
I remember they were revolutionary. We used to have to use graph paper to chart these things.
It was a graphing calculator.
A graphing calculator.
So
it was the first it was before mobile computers.
Yeah, and sometimes you couldn't use them for the test because you'd be cheating. And I'm failing this test anyway. I am pre-diagnosed, unmedicated. There was also a game. What was it called? Drug Wars.
Drug Wars?
Yeah, there was a hack in the game.
Oh my God.
A hack in the computer where you could go. It was horrible. It was wildly inappropriate. I do not condone
What's inappropriate about Drug Wars, Jillian?
I mean, it was just I'm not even going to get into it. I'm going to get in trouble. But there used to be a game. I don't even know how we found it. How did we hack I don't know. Someone told us about, I don't know.
And I can see Alan secretly put, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put in a game called Drug Wars. That sounds insane.
But
this sounds like an urban legend.
I swear I played it. I was very bad at it, if it's any consolation.
Oh my God.
But I tripped up on, I was like, tech was booming in Dallas in 73, you say. Here we are. So Betty and Alan moved to Wiley, Texas in 1977.
The first time we drove up to their house, it was just little rows of houses that were well-manicured yards, just pristine. The choice to live where they lived was of more security and more small town feel.
It's got that small town feel. And we see the house today. The house still stands.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
It's one of those things where I love at the end of these documentaries where something horrible happens in a house and they just demolish it.
And that house has been burned to the ground.
Yeah, not this time.
But just a little bit more about Betty as a teacher. She loved it. She loved Valentine's Day with the kids and making Valentines for each other. And someone says she knew if a kid, quote, wasn't getting enough attention at home. And then Betty would go out of her way to make sure that the kid was either accepted or feeling safe or had everything they need.
It was one of the hardships of COVID. They would talk about the kids were that's the only place they school is the only place they get meals.
They get
school
a meal,
is the only place they see an adult that cares about
them.
Yeah. And that's that is they don't pay you extra for that.
No.
That you just do because that's the kind of person that you are.
Absolutely. Was that in any of the docuseries?
Right.
The dramatized versions? I don't I don't know.
No, when you got a perm like we got on our killer here, I imagine you spent a lot of time focused on that.
And it's like, I don't know. I was just like, more of this.
Yes.
I want to know more about her.
Well, speaking of, we learned that she's not just thriving at home and at work, she's also a very active member of her local parish. It's the Lucas Methodist Church.
Betty would help put the programs on for the church youth group.
She liked the social aspects of church.
It's through the church that the Gores meet their good friends, Pat and Candy Montgomery.
And this is where she and her husband, Alan, meet their new good family friends, Pat and Candy Montgomery.
Right. So their daughters are the same age.
Which I made a note, like, as a parent, it doesn't even matter if you like each other.
They're together all the time.
If you have kids who are the same age, you're going to be hanging out.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like something, of course. So by 1979, Betty has their second daughter, Bethany.
Yes.
Again, she was the life of the party, little Bethany was. Like, everything is so great. Everyone is so happy. Like, Betty Gore has a strong foundation in this town. She's a teacher.
Yeah.
All the parents and the students know her. She's part of the church community. Like, she's thriving.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's doing great.
Everything and I wonder if she wakes up in the mornings and she's just like, I'm fucking doing it. I'm fucking Betty Gore and I'm fucking doing it.
Like that guy from, God, I'm awesome. I'm so great.
Yeah.
Like, I'm putting good out into this world.
Yes.
Which is what she was doing.
100%.
She's teaching and then doing like spiritual shit. Like, come on.
Yeah. No, you're doing great, Betty.
So then we cut to June 13th, 1980, and everyone wants to tell us 600 times that it's also Friday the 13th.
I know.
Stop trying to make this extra spooky.
I agree.
It's a coincidence, fine, but I think we can move on.
Okay, you're real mad about it.
I just think it's like, because it gets worse later on about like trying to make this an extra spook. What is scarier than someone you know? Like, it's just so shitty.
It's really bad.
God.
So that night, Alan is out of town on a business trip. We learned he travels a lot.
Yeah.
And he's calling home and he can't get a hold of Betty. So he calls their good friend Candy Montgomery. And
Candy tells Alan that morning she'd driven to Betty's house to pick up a bathing suit for Betty's daughter, Elisa.
She does have Elisa, who's spending the night, but she hasn't spoken to Betty since stopping by the house earlier that morning.
And I haven't seen Betty since, and she was in really good spirits when I saw her. And they say Alan is like confused by this, but he hangs up and goes out to dinner with his colleagues.
Right.
Which is like, this is 1980. This is decades before cell phones and texting. We're not in constant communication. It's like not that weird that they haven't connected yet that day.
I have that like exact same note to say, like, everyone keep in mind it's 1980. People were just unreachable.
Yes.
And like the way we live now wasn't even an idea to them, even like a tech god like Alan. So
who's like inserting like druggy video games into calculators.
I don't know who did
so
it.
that you, who does not need another thing to be distracted by, can find it in the middle of calc.
Oh my God, I just got transported back to being 15 years old, being told about all my distractions. If you cared half as much about your school as you did about your music or your this.
Or like playing drug wars in the middle of your private school afternoon.
I never really could like grasp the game.
Totally.
I was always like, what? Like, but it's whatever.
I could never figure out how to spell boobs on the calculator and by like turning it upside down.
It's 8008.
Oh, right.
And
you
5.
know what? That makes a lot of
5
sense
is
to me now.
BS.
And I'm sorry, just real quick, what does it sound like when you call the 1-800-BOOBS hotline?
1-900-58-008.
And then what does she say?
Boobs.
What does she say when you get her on the phone?
Hi. I'm Jessica. It'll be $199 for the first minute. And then $1,000 for each additional. It's never worth it, you know?
I could listen to you do that all day long. I could listen to it all day. Oh, God. So after dinner, Alan calls home again, no answer. And now he's me, right?
Well, she should absolutely be home. It's after dinner. She has a toddler. Like, this is cause for concern.
He waits 15 minutes. He calls again, no answer. Now he calls his neighbor, Richard Parker.
It's 10 o'clock. It's the only thing you can do in 1980.
Yeah.
And again, what I was saying before, it's like they didn't have any comparison.
Right.
It's like to the time that it is now. Like,
right, yeah.
Alan is doing everything he can do. He's calling the only number he has for her.
Yeah.
Now he's calling friends and neighbors. He's like, it's weird to think about now, but
I know.
Right now, like, this is the only thing he can do.
This is the day and age when, like, you would have all of your neighbors' phone numbers written on a sheet of paper taped inside the cabinet in your kitchen. Like, you had, this was how we kept each other safe back then.
Poison control, right? And emergency
truly,
number. Yeah.
Truly. Like, I remember my friend Bethany, I remember, like, opening her cabinet one day and seeing, like, the list of everybody on their street and their, like, address, name, and phone number.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, that's just what you did. So that's what he does. He asked them to go check on the house and make sure everyone is okay. And also I'm like, oh my God. Like we know where Elisa is, their older child, but we don't, like all I could think about is Bethany, the 18-month-old or whatever.
Yeah. So Richard goes over to the house.
He sees that the garage door is up. He also sees that lights are on, but he doesn't go knock on the door. Alan's like, go knock on the door. Break down the door. You have my permission.
Bitch, go knock on the door.
And I was like, Richard, I'm going to tell you this one time you have permission to break into my home.
Yes.
Like, why would the lights be on and the garage door open, but my wife
isn't answering
and my several-month-old baby are in the, I don't know where they are, break into the house.
Get in there, Richard.
Like, thank you for asking, I guess, but stop, like, polite should go out the window.
Yes.
Kick the door in and see what's going on.
Yes.
And so that's sort of what happens. So Alan, like, while this is happening, Alan calls in more people for help.
Lester's here.
Lester's a volunteer firefighter. Their friend Jerry is there, too. We have footage of Lester, like, from the news from like 20 years ago.
It's like Lester, Richard, and another neighbor named Jerry. They say they all meet up in front of Betty and Alan's house. Like, this is unusual for this to be happening in this neighborhood.
Right.
And I think these men are scared.
I think they're scared too.
And also, like, I don't mean this as a joke, and I do not mean this disrespectfully. If there's a dead body on the other side of that door, I do not want to be alone. If you need me to go find out, I'm gonna fucking find out for you. Yeah. But I do not want to be alone when I make that discovery.
Yeah, and that's what I think they're scared of what they're gonna see.
100%.
Because it's you can feel it.
And you also
something bad happens.
Don't hear the baby crying. I'm going to tell you right now, the baby's okay.
Fine.
The baby's okay. I wouldn't say fine, but she's okay.
She's okay. She will be
alive.
Okay. She's not. So anyway, the neighbors break into the house pretty easily. By the way, they just like open the door.
It doesn't seem like these doors are hard to kick open.
It's like this is the one town where they don't actually lock their doors in 1977, where we can't just walk into Betty's house.
Exactly.
So they walk in, the three men. They hear Bethany crying.
And they say, one of them goes down the hall to the bedroom, and they say it's Bethany. She was red-faced, hoarse, soiled.
This poor baby had been crying all day long.
I mean, it was the word hoarse that really got me.
It's heartbreaking.
Because that baby has been screaming and so for hours.
For hours.
We're going to find out, like, it's now after 10 o'clock, and we learn this whatever happened, like, in the middle of the afternoon. It's been, like, 7 hours.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Of the baby screaming.
So Richard picks up Bethany, gets the hell out of there, and brings Bethany home to his wife, because she'll know what to do.
Let the women do the work.
Like,
God
seriously.
Yes, 100%.
Like, and she does.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, the other men search the house.
So Lester opens it just a hair, just a crack.
And what he finds is an absolute bloodbath.
They describe the scene as a bloodbath.
It's so awful because there are crime scene photos and they show them, but they're so blurred out. You're just seeing a pool of red.
I mean, it must have been so shocking.
Yeah, it's very shocking. There is just blood everywhere. This poor woman died a very, very brutal death.
Yeah.
Can I just say also, Lester says to the news, I've seen lots of people die in lots of different ways, but this was the worst. To which I said, Lester, what has your life been?
He's a volunteer firefighter.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, this is real bad. Lester's seen a lot, and he says this is the worst.
This is the worst. And so Lester, in the middle of them sort of discovering the scene, Alan calls the house again.
Like, the phone rings in the kitchen, and Lester picks the phone up. And immediately my thought is like, oh my God, you're going to have to tell him.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So Lester, the volunteer firefighter, has to be the one to tell his friend and neighbor that his wife has been murdered.
He opens by saying the baby is fine. And then he says, what about Betty? And he says, she's dead.
And now Lester right now tells Alan that Betty has been shot. We will find out later that that's not true. And at the time, though, that's what Lester tells Alan. And not for any shady reason. Like, everyone is overwhelmed and traumatized. And I don't think you could even seeing the scene that they were looking at, I don't think you even imagine what actually happened to her could be true.
Right.
So I think he's just saying she must have gotten shot in the stomach and bled out. Like,
yes.
Because Alan is asking questions, I'm sure, on the other end. And Lester, did what he did in that moment, and it wasn't for any, he's not lying.
No,
Lester didn't do anything here.
Oh God, no.
So the police are called, obviously.
Yes.
Steve shows up, Steve Defabaugh.
On June 13th, 1980, I was notified about this homicide. And so I drove down there sometime after midnight. And when I got there was already a crowd of people. News media was already there. And I said, oh, crap.
crowds of people are there. So I guess maybe there's 3 men that found the body. So I guess somebody told somebody and somebody called everybody in town.
Yeah, I think like Betty's dead and here's the baby who's been crying all day. Like I guess word gets around. I don't know what dingbat called the press.
I mean,
like that should never be your. Oh, I know what I'll do.
Right, not the right.
Let's call
move.
the Tribune.
No,
like let's not do that.
And Steve right now is standing in front of the house again, like reliving this night, like in real time for us.
And he needs to secure the house immediately, and so he does the only thing he can do, which is lock the door with scotch tape and index cards that say "Do not enter."
I was like, I don't understand. Are the police in this town underfunded?
They must be, or it's just like there's a crowd of people.
Yeah.
He's got to make some kind of statement,
right,
as quickly as he can.
He
and here
scotch
we are.
tapes the door shut.
Yeah. Okay. Look, whatever you got to do, Inspector Steve.
So he walks in. He says he heads down the hallway. He sees blood. He gets to work collecting evidence right away. He starts in the utility room, and this is where he finds the body. And he says the body is on the floor by the freezer. And he said there was so much blood, it had already started coagulating. It had pooled up to half an inch deep.
Yeah. And so clearly not a bloodshot wound, right?
No.
And then they find an axe. And then they notice the axe marks on Betty's body, which is horrifying.
The victim, half her face was eviscerated. She had wounds all over her body.
It's the other wall over on the right side. There was an axe laying there. We could see they had blood all over the axe handle and over the bit. And then, of course, if you look at the body, even a layman could look at the marks on the body and see there were chop marks.
There were wounds all over her body. And we'll learn that this crime happened 7-8 hours ago.
Yeah.
So she just laid there and just bled out.
Right. And so they see a bloody footprint under one of Betty's legs. And it's a really small footprint. So they say it's either a woman or a youth. And I'm like, 2 youths? Like,
I know.
Or a youth. I know that's a word people say.
You can't hear the word youth and not think 2 youths.
I mean.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I immediately thought of it.
Maybe
because I knew I was going to be doing this with you and I know how much you love my cousin Vinny.
Probably, yeah.
And you are convinced that Marissa Tomei legally won that Oscar.
Hold on a second. What's the real argument?
The real argument is
she's
that
a little too pretty?
No.
And too funny to win an Oscar?
The real argument was that the presenter read the last name instead of saying the person who actually won.
What other Tomei was nominated?
No. Read the last name on the list. Like, and the nominees are Julian Pensavalle, Marissa Tomei, and then just reread the name Marissa Tomei. But they were like, Price Waterhouse was like, that's not how that would work.
I was going to say,
you know what I mean?
And we've seen this since.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We've had mistakes like this again.
Oh my God, that's right. When they miscalled the Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was the gay one. The gay one actually won. Moonlight.
Oh, Moonlight
was the actual winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look confused. You don't think gays should win Oscars? Interesting. No, tell us more about that.
Don't turn the shit around on me. Marissa Tomei won fair and square. So as horrible as this is, the thing about this scene is that there's very good usable evidence, right? Because the cops just keep finding more things to use in this case around the house. Like there's blood in the carpet in the bathroom.
Yeah.
There's blood in the bathtub and lots of hair in the bathtub.
And the hair is not from the victim. They're saying somebody cleaned up. Mm-hmm. Somebody like did this horrible crime, then went and like took a shower.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
So they tried to clean themselves up.
Ghoulish. Because if you think about what that scene is, not only when you are taking this axe and beating this woman to death, there's a baby screaming in the background. You're now in the shower, cleaning yourself up, trying to get away with this murder, and the baby is screaming.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
There's no question about it. What are you humming in the shower? Is it a quick shower?
God.
Like, fuck you.
Right.
So the more they look at this house.
I went into the master bedroom and I saw some film, 35 millimeter film, but it had a $20 bill stuck up. It probably wasn't a home invasion or a robbery or burglary, because what good thief would leave $20 there?
If this wasn't a robbery, then who would have attacked a well-loved teacher at home with her baby?
This is a gruesome, vicious crime, and it seems very personal. So that like something happened or something went awry or a conversation went bad. Like this was not just, oh, she must be home at 12:30 in the afternoon. Like let's rob her. No,
they're saying it's a bloodbath that looks like something like the Manson family would have done, and we know how bloody those murders were. Yeah. So like whoever did that, like the only motive was to kill this person.
Yeah,
you know?
There's like cash laying out there, credit cards, like
right.
There's also blood on the newspaper.
Okay, we're going down this path. We're going to do this
because I I like how victim-focused it is, but I take issue with the Friday the 13th bullshit in this. Because it's open to the movie section.
Right.
And what movie came out on that very day? The Shining.
Right.
You know what weapon is used in that movie? An
axe.
So they're like, is it a coincidence? And I'm like, yes!
The only thing I'll say in the defense of the investigators here is that it's 1980 and there's very little to go on. It's like,
I guess.
you know, they don't have the promise of DNA. It's like, we need to look at, so they're like, oh, is it a copycat killing?
No.
No, it's
Let me tell you why. Because I know it's a book, so I Googled.
Yeah.
Like, what is the weapon that Jack uses in The Shining the same in the book and the movie? And it's not.
Oh, he uses like a machete or something?
In the book, in the movie, it's very famously the axe.
Yeah.
But in the book, it's a mallet.
Oh.
So the killer would have had to see in the movie first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen, and then be a copycat killer after the 10 a.m. showing of The Shining.
As just like a random one-off murder.
Like,
you know what I mean?
You guys.
No. We're reaching a little far here.
Real big reach.
Yeah.
Betty's family, of course, is devastated.
Yeah,
but
they call the family in Kansas to tell them.
Right. And their first goal is we need to know where Elisa and Bethany are. We need to protect them. Like, where are they? Are they in danger? Is the killer coming back for them? Like,
right.
That's their focus.
Yeah. And it's like Pat, the sister-in-law, is one who keeps driving home. She's like, all I could think about, like, because the police relayed the brutality of the killing to the family for some reason. And Pat's like, that was awful. But all we could think about was Bethany. Mm-hmm. Bethany would have been in the house. Like,
the whole time.
And now the kids are going to be the sole focus.
Right.
What are we going to do? Like, their mother is dead.
Right.
You know?
So Betty's family gets to Texas.
Yeah.
And they are immediately suspicious of Alan, the husband.
Yeah. Now, they're saying
Betty's family are kind of taken aback at how Alan is behaving. He does not strike them as being appropriately grieving.
I felt his concern for the girls, but then as things go on, you just didn't see the emotion that you expect. He seemed very well put together.
He's not appropriately grieving.
My only thing I would say here is that he was very concerned the night before. Calling,
yes.
then calling Candy, then calling the neighbor, then calling back and finding out that his wife is dead. Also, like, Alan took the night in Dallas or whatever. Like, it seems like he came back the next morning.
He came back right away.
He did, okay.
And so, but what they're saying, and we will get into this later, but what they're really driving home is like, something's up with Alan.
Yes.
What is up with him? Like, yes, he was on business. Yes, he came home immediately. Yes, he called around, but like, something's up with that guy.
It's like,
I don't know what it is.
He didn't do it, but there's something going on here. Yeah.
Alan, what do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's also like, Alan, what do you wonder? More like it. Because it's like, I don't think that Alan like hired anybody to kill his wife, but like, what is going on here?
Right. So this is where we get like, you know, Betty's family is fully cooperating with the police. Everyone's fingerprinted.
Yes.
Like, everyone wants to get to the bottom of this and also protect those poor kids.
Yep.
And the whole town is terrified. It's a super small town. Like, is there a killer amongst them? Yeah. And they don't know who it is.
Right, because they're like, well, you know, we meet people who worked at the school, and they're like, we know Betty. She had no enemies.
Right.
Who would do this to her?
Everybody loved her.
Everybody loved her.
She was a pillar of the community.
Yeah.
And people say that a lot, but she was. She was a teacher. She was in the church community. Like, come on.
Who would do this to Betty? And
am I next? Is what everyone's thinking.
Because they're thinking, like, this has to be a random act of violence, so then any one of us could be next.
Right. And so you better get this guy before they come after my family.
Right.
Or, you know, my husband's away on business too, or I have a little baby too. You know, it's just people start spiraling.
So they're sitting around the house, and the phone rings, and one of the brothers answers it.
It was somebody trying to say that they had killed Betty, and they were gonna harm the little girl too.
Richard just couldn't handle it and hung up the phone.
I killed her.
And I'm going to get the little kids too.
Like, this is fucking insane.
It's insane.
And so the Texas Rangers get involved, and they're like, look, this psycho is obviously going to call back to keep taunting you. Next time he does, you got to keep him on the phone. Now, remember, this is the 1980s where famously you need the guy on the phone for 15 minutes in order to trace the call.
Well, the cops, like, they're just like, we'll just wait. Like, the cops just sit in the house. They're literally waiting by the phone, waiting for the phone to ring.
Because it's 1980 and there's no other clues to go on. They don't, what else are they going to do?
Right. So they do call back.
Yeah.
Richard, the brother, keeps them on the phone for the appropriate 10 minutes.
How on earth do you keep this guy talking for 10 minutes?
I mean,
you know?
Yeah.
Like, Richard, you are a fucking hero.
Amazing.
And they're able to trace the call, and they trace it to a mental hospital 50 miles away. And the cops jump in their cars. Woo, woo, woo. They drive the 50 miles, and they find out the man who made the call has never left the locked facility.
Yeah, he's unable to leave the facility. He doesn't have access to a car. There's no way he's the murderer. This happens too often.
Well, it's like, who's monitoring the calls at the mental hospital? This should not be a thing. Number one, how do you get, I mean, I guess you get a phone book and anybody can get their number at the time.
Right, but like the urge to do this prank comes up often on the show. And I think it's so cruel.
Yes.
Because not only is it, I mean, it's cruel, obviously, to what you're doing emotionally to the family, but it's wasting everyone's fucking time. And money and resources. Like, what is that urge to tease people like that and give them either false hope or just be mean? Like, what is that?
I mean, obviously this person has like mental health issues, and you just wonder like if like he hasn't had anything exciting in his life in 20 years and he's going to do this. Like, he's just a mean, bad guy, you know?
Yeah.
I blame the hospital. It's like somebody should be watching this guy. This should not be allowed to happen.
So the cops finally start looking into Candy Montgomery, because remember, she's the last person to see Betty alive. Candy told Betty's husband that she was at the house the morning of the murder to get a bathing suit for Betty's daughter, Elisa.
Yes.
So the cops talk to Candy, and does Candy have a story for them? She has a very exquisitely detailed recap of her entire day on June 13th.
She's so helpful, fam.
She is so helpful. It was so hot. It was such a hot day. So she was teaching Bible school.
Yeah.
She tells them it was a very hot day, so she left Vacation Bible School to pick up a bathing suit from Betty so Elisa could go swimming with them later. Candy says she and Betty visited for a little bit, but when she left, Betty seemed fine.
Then Candy subsequently returned to church.
Candy goes back to church to teach the little ones about love.
Yes.
And the fucking commandments or whatever.
Of course.
And that's it. Candy really doesn't have much to add to what the cops already know. They take her fingerprints, they send her on their way.
Now, I wonder if you're Candy, are you like wondering, you obviously shouldn't intentionally leave any fingerprints at the scene, but I would think if I'm Candy, when they take my fingerprints, I'm nervous.
Well, she was at the house anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
She was at Bible school.
That's true.
Went to the house,
she
chatted
puts herself
with
in the
Betty.
scene. Yeah, that's right.
What's the harm in a couple of fucking fingerprints?
That's right.
I mean, she's a lovely person.
So the next thing that happens is the medical examiner releases Betty's autopsy. And it's revealed, obviously, that it was this extremely violent attack that she endured.
The axe marks on Betty counted to 41 total axe marks, 28 times in the head.
Because of this gross overkill, the medical examiner was quickly convinced that the assailant is probably someone who knew her, and that the motive was primal. It was jealousy.
They say the motive was primal. It had to be jealousy.
So they're like, it's Alan, right? It's almost always the husband. Let's talk to him. Something's off with Alan. What's going on? Let's haul him in.
Something's wrong, but we know that he was out of town. Like, we know he was in Dallas. He spoke to every neighbor on the block.
Right.
You know, so at the very least, it wasn't him in person.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that, though, because he was away on business, and Betty didn't love all the traveling. Like, she was having a hard time getting used to it. She's working. She's raising 2 kids. He's out of town a lot.
I think about, like, this is like me and Steve. I travel all the time. We only have 1 kid, and Steve's alone at home with her a lot, and she's almost 10. Like, she can do a lot of things for herself, and it's still hard.
Yeah.
And Betty's got a newborn, and she's got, like, the older kid. Like, that is really hard. And working on top of it, plus all of her volunteer. I as a parent, I really felt this.
And on top of that, she had postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And she was on medication for it. So that was also hard on the relationship.
Yeah.
And Betty was also like, just all of these stressors. And on top of that, she was worried that she was pregnant again. And she just like didn't have like room for that on her very, very overcrowded plate.
Right.
So here's what happened that morning. Alan and Betty had breakfast together. He leaves for Minneapolis. The police confirmed that Alan was actually on the business trip. Hotel records and plane tickets and phone records and all that. Like, he was there. But they're like, right, but could he have killed Betty and then went on the trip and then like sent the neighbors to the house to discover this horrible scene?
Because we don't know, we don't have a time of death for Betty. So it could have happened early in the morning before he left.
Right. But then it's like, would he really subject his daughter, Bethany, to be alone and suffer for all that time?
Well, you have to believe if you're evil enough to hack somebody to death 48 times.
And plan it and then act like the grieving husband on the phone.
100%.
And they're like, yeah, he didn't do it in person, but like he's still hiding something. Like, what is going on with Alan?
Yeah. So they ask him if he knows anyone who might have wanted to hurt Betty.
No enemies.
They ask him if there were any affairs. He says absolutely not.
Never.
And they ask if he'll take a polygraph to confirm all of this, and he says yes. And they take his fingerprints and ask him to return the next day for the polygraph.
So the next morning rolls around.
Yeah.
And Alan Calls the cops.
He's had some time to think it over.
I don't think
he's
Alan
agreed to.
slept a wink that night. No. I think he was pacing, sweating.
Yep.
He calls the cops and
Not
he's
to
like,
mention like dealing with his 2 traumatized fucking children.
Right.
You would hope.
And his trauma, hopefully, and his whole life that's a nightmare now.
Right.
So Alan calls the cops and says,
You know how I told you I had not had an affair outside my marriage? I did have an affair.
But Alan's not done confessing.
He says, with Candy Montgomery.
Remember when I told you I didn't have an affair? Remember that little tidbit?
I did have an affair, and here's, you sitting down? Here's what's really going to get you. I was having an affair with Candy Montgomery, the last person to see my wife alive. Is that I should, before I take the polygraph saying that everything was great in our marriage, should probably let you know.
And so this is where I start to have questions with Alan, because Alan immediately confirms that the affair ended 8 months earlier.
And also that's why Alan was acting so weird. Well, because he was lying. He was very scared that this moment was going to come.
Right.
That he was going to be outed that they had this affair.
But is he worried that he was going to be outed that he had the affair, or is he worried that this woman that he had the affair with killed his wife?
I think he's got to get to one.
Yes.
I think this is a little bit of like a ladder. Like he's just like, wait a second, I have to tell them about the affair, because the reason he's worried about telling them about the affair is because he knows there's something yelling at him.
Yeah.
She did this.
Right. Because we're going to learn about their affair. It doesn't sound that hot and heavy, and it doesn't sound that romantic, but I think it's a lie.
Yeah, it's...
So here we go.
Okay.
So Alan claims that the affair ended 8 months earlier, but the cops don't really believe it. But he passes the polygraph test, at the very least that he didn't commit the murder.
Yeah, and based on the evidence, like this was not a murder for hire. Alan didn't do it. Alan right now is only guilty of having an affair with Candy, right?
Right, because I'm kind of like, well, did he collude with Candy to kill her because of the affair?
So I'm like, all right, she was the last person to see Betty, and she was sleeping with her husband. Can we haul her ass back in, please?
Exactly.
I have a couple questions for Betty.
Yes.
So they do that. They talk to Candy. They confront her about the affair, and she's like, oh, God, of course. Did you not know about the affair?
I know.
She admits to it right away.
I thought I was so clear about that, no?
And lays it all out, because this affair was all business.
Yeah,
because
this is like the Steve Tiptonist affair, if ever there was one. If Steve were ever going to have an affair, it would go down exactly like this.
So here's what, she was super bored with her husband. She went to Alan directly, would you like to have an affair with me? Yeah. Alan said, you know what? Yes, I would.
I absolutely would. My wife's a drag since having that second kid.
Like, her postpartum depression is really bringing me down.
So, like, I'm making a joke, but I don't mean it to be funny at all.
No.
Like, Betty is suffering. And he's like, she's a real drag now.
Yeah,
in the
like,
bedroom.
I'll totally have some afternoon delight with you,
exactly.
Betty. So they discuss the terms.
They negotiate the terms of the affair.
Because what they both agree on...
Steve would have a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The rules basically stated that they wouldn't get attached to each other. The cost of the affair would be shared equally, and they would meet on weekdays when their spouses were at work.
They would evenly split all costs, dinners, motel rooms, etc.
Evenly split all the costs.
Like, come on.
Oh, like trading receipts.
Yeah. And then they would only meet on the weekdays when their spouses were at work.
Yes.
So their place of choice was the Como Motel.
Oh, my God.
Candy would make a picnic lunch, and then she would, like, invoice Alan for going to the store.
For the meat and cheese.
Yeah, right. They'd bang, and then they'd, like, shake hands and move on with their day.
She would invoice Alan.
You know she came with...
I know.
Did you finish that yogurt? Okay, because... So I bought... The bologna was on sale. I know you like ham. I got bologna and cheese and the Wonder Bread. Also, I'm almost out of mustard. I'd appreciate it.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that's how it's presented.
And
that it was down to the cent. And it was very, like, all business. No, it was just I guess, Candy, she was... suffering in her marriage sexually. I guess the point is they just wanted to get off, and they had this agreement. And
I don't imagine the sex was passionate. It was like,
I don't think so.
Yes, Alan. Yes, give it to me. Do it like that. Do it. Yes, mommy loves it. Give it to mommy just like that, Alan.
Boobs.
I know, boobs. Oh, I'm so
58008 boobs. So
that's boobs on a calculator. Fam.
Yeah, but then so like that was going on for a little bit, and Candy's like, eventually we were just kind of over it. It was because it was pretty boring, as you've heard. We mutually decided to end it. No harm, no foul.
I gotta say too, they make the picnic lunches because neither one of them wants to spring for an actual meal at a restaurant. They don't want to actually pay the gratuity.
But the thing is, though, I think that makes sense when you're trying to hide something from someone.
I guess so.
Because if you're spending all this money going out to fancy dinners and fancy, like, I think Candy very, like, manipulatively was saying, well, here's what I can do for my budget. And Alan could say, well, I can't put like a fancy lunch on the business card. You know, like it was a way.
It's like, you guys, why do you even need a meal? Just if
you know what I mean?
Just go for the hour. You know what I mean?
But like it's everyone's lunch break. They really were trying, because one of the rules was that they only met on weekdays when their spouses were at work. So they had from 12 to 1.
You're right. They do need some nourishment.
They had
I guess.
a lot going on, because then it's like, because Candy, I think she's incredibly manipulative.
Yeah.
So I think like she can't be seen. She doesn't want anyone to be like, Candy, I saw you having lunch at 2 p.m. You usually have lunch at noon. She just wants to, she can't have a late lunch because she was humping Alan.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of planning, and a lot, like, the sex is like the afterthought. They got to get all their receipts tallied.
Right.
Make sure nobody spent a penny more than the other.
And the cops are like,
I know.
Okay. So they don't 100% believe it. And they're like, all right, so it confirmed affair by both of them.
Yes.
Candy was the last person to see Betty.
Yep.
We don't really have anything on her. And someone's just like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, actually you do, because we have the fingerprints back.
Right.
Sergeant Cron is able to find more than enough matching characteristics between the two prints.
He confirmed that the right thumb on the inked print was the same as the bloody thumbprint. Then Candace Montgomery became the party of interest for this homicide.
Not the fingerprints on the door, which she could be like, I was there to pick up the bathing suit. No. A bloody fingerprint matches Candy's fingerprint.
Which we say, like, you would think too, Candy, who definitely did this, was obviously in some kind of blind rage and was not thinking. Because, like, there was so much blood and the fingerprint is smeared on it's almost as though in the midst of, like, striking Betty, she slipped in the blood and fell against the freezer.
I think that's exactly what happened.
But then forgot that she did it. Like, I'm just thinking, if they're taking my fingerprint, I'm very nervous.
Yes. So here's what the cops have. They have the matching fingerprint. Candy's matches. The footprint, which is the same size as Candy.
Yeah.
Candy was the last person to see Betty alive. She was having an affair with Betty's husband.
Yeah.
And so the motive is that she wanted to get rid of Betty so she could have Alan for herself.
Now, Candy obviously did this. I'm not so sure about that motive. It was the least sexy affair I have ever heard of.
And it ended months ago.
Yes.
So, I don't know. But they want to speak to Candy again, and this is where Candy lawyers up. But she does it in a pretty interesting way, because she gets her two church friends who've never tried a criminal case or have any experience in a homicide case. So Don Crowder is Candy's lawyer. He's a friend from church, never tried a criminal case. And Robert, who's with us today, was 3 years out of law school. He's like, I've never done anything like this. But Candy trusted them because they were from the church.
Well, they sit down and Candy tells them the story. And they're like, look, we were looking for holes in her story, but she was just a small little person. There's no way she could have lifted the axe. She couldn't have done this.
Yeah.
Her arms are too weak. Her brain is too small.
She's a woman. She's a woman, right?
Has that not been made clear?
She was like a girl not that long ago. So let's all pipe down.
Yeah. It could not have been
her. It was
her.
Clearly the Shining copycat killer. Obviously.
Who's clearly a man
who's client
capable of murder.
Is innocent.
Innocent.
Where's Jack Nicholson right now?
Right.
Call him in here. I got to talk to him.
So it's June 27th, 1980. It's 2 weeks after Betty's murder. Police issue an arrest warrant for 29-year-old Candy Montgomery.
29?
I know. That was the jump scare of it all. She looks like a 50-year-old woman.
That hair's not doing her any favors.
No. Why did perms become a thing? Why did anybody think a perm would, it didn't look good on anybody?
Well, because she's arrested and all the cameras are there. And that famous photo of her, if you know what Candy Montgomery looks like, it's that photo with the big, 1980, late 70s glasses and that hairdo, which is just like...
Yeah.
Woof.
It's literally why the movie got made. Like Jessica Biel in that wig, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and also they had Elizabeth Olsen play her in the other one.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. So
why are these movies just getting made now? This happened in 1980.
They came out maybe 2023-ish, but they came
40
out
years ago.
But they came out at the same time.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
Remember when the Amy Fisher movie, all three of them came out the same week? It was Alyssa Milano, Drew Barrymore, and somebody else no one's ever heard of.
They were all TV movies?
All TV movies, they all came out the same week.
Jeez.
Isn't that wild?
That sucks.
Better planning networks.
Or please, just we'll do that. We'll grab the money first.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to look shame, but it's just it's such a blast from the past hairdo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's such an odd style.
Yes.
That even then I don't think many people were doing.
No.
It was it's a very tight perm. Yeah. It's just very strange.
I'm trying to imagine you with that haircut now. And it would age you by 30 years.
Right? So they strip search Candy, which is standard, they say.
They found a lot of bruises on her. but also her left middle toe had a large gash in it that appeared that had been cut.
Including a very large gash on her toe.
Right.
Then we just jump like because we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But 4 months after Betty's murder, Candy's on trial for the murder of Betty Gore.
Which again is also like that one that we just did, because I think that she must have exercised her right to a speedy trial, because 4 months later, like there's no one is prepared.
Right. Candy's pleading not guilty. She's claiming self-defense. And what she's saying, which is huge for people because she's admitting that she did this.
I was just going to say, so like her own defense team who was saying, well, when she told us the story, we're like, there's no way it could be her because there's no way that anybody could like...
She's a woman. Like, have we been clear about that?
I told you she was a lady.
Like, she's an idiot and she's weak. Like, what?
No, but now she's admitting. She's like, I absolutely did kill Betty Gore. No question about it.
And I killed her with that axe.
Yeah.
And yes, I left a little baby crying all day long. And yes, I did it in self-defense. Does anyone have any questions? And everyone's like, yeah, about 1 million, Candy.
Yeah.
And also, 41 hits with an axe is not self-defense.
No.
I don't care what happened.
No, because finally what it comes down to is you're saying it's self-defense, but you're still, the overkill is one thing. You went and took a shower.
You washed up.
She like acknowledges that she went and took a shower while this baby is screaming bloody murder, literally.
And where'd she go after? Went back to Bible study.
Right.
To teach Elisa.
Right.
Betty's daughter, more Bible study, and then Elisa slept over Candy's house. She just killed her mother.
And left the baby there like indefinitely.
Right.
And like also all of that is horrendous, makes you a monster.
And lied for weeks.
But also did not go to the cops.
Right.
If you kill somebody in self-defense, the very first fucking thing you do is call 911.
She was one of the first people they spoke to because she was the last person to see her alive.
Yeah.
She lied for months.
Yeah. I mean, like, I understand, like, if like she fled the scene and she was confused, like, she's like, no one's gonna believe me that it was self-defense. But like, I'm sorry, your instinct after mauling your best friend to death is going to be to call the police to explain that you had to kill somebody in self-defense. You know what I mean?
And take the baby.
And take the baby.
You left the baby.
The baby could have died.
And then now you're all washed up so that Elisa, Betty's daughter, doesn't notice a hair out of place or blood on you when you go back to teach her Bible study.
Yeah.
Like, this woman's a monster. So, but even worse, the prosecution thinks it's a slam dunk. And I'm like, oh, God, it never, no.
Well, and even more, they think it's a slam dunk because Betty's taking the stand.
And she's the first witness.
Yeah, she's like the first witness in her own defense.
So here's what Candy says on the stand.
Yeah.
Candy does go over for the bathing suit for Elisa. Betty, out of the clear blue sky, confronts Candy about the 8-month-old affair because they had stopped the affair 8 months ago. Right. Out of nowhere, Betty then appears with an axe.
Right.
And starts approaching Candy.
In the utility room. Like, corners her in the utility room.
And Candy apparently says, no, the affair's over. Like, you have it all wrong. He meant nothing to me. Betty, this is all according to Candy. Betty charges at Candy. She's swinging and swinging. Betty's attacking Candy. And every time Candy tried to run away, Betty was able to like catch her and grab her and like drag her back into this utility room with the freezer. So Candy is now begging Betty to stop. Oh my, Betty, please stop, please stop. As she's begging Betty to stop, Candy says that Betty shushes her and goes, shh.
This triggers something in Candy. Candy begins hitting her.
In Candy's, her mind's going to, I can't keep her down. I can't get out of here. And she just literally hit her until she was too tired to swing that axe anymore.
Her own lawyer says she hit her until she was too tired to swing.
Yes.
Because of the shushing. Then Candy, we'll get back to the shushing. Don't worry, we're not. Don't worry. Then again, so she cleaned up, left the baby, and went back to teach.
By cleaned up, she took a shower.
She took a shower.
She took a shower.
Left her DNA all over the place.
Yeah.
So you're telling me she snapped and then snapped right out of the snapping?
Right.
No.
And doesn't think to call the cops or make sure the baby. Now, just to I know I'm focused on the baby. Nobody as far as Candy knew, nobody was gonna come tend to that baby for 24 hours.
And like, when
that
was
baby
Alan
could
getting
die
home?
in that time.
Like, when was Alan supposed to? Alan left that morning. He was gone for a few days.
Yeah.
Candy.
The baby could easily have died.
No question.
Yeah.
Unless she said, well, Alan will call her.
Right.
Like, unless she knew she's only going to be screaming, for 12 hours?
At 12,
That's
13
fine.
hours,
Like, honestly, that must have been because I think she is very calculated.
Yeah.
And she thinks of how to get out of things and she tries to, play chess.
Oh, my
And I
God.
think she knew in the moment, I'll leave the baby because Alan will definitely call.
And then call a neighbor to find out where Betty is.
I think she thought the baby will be tortured for 12 hours, but it'll be fine.
But it'll be fine.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
So the defense has like these experts to explain away the fact that Candy hit Betty 41 times with an axe.
Yes.
And the guy gets up there and he talks about how Candy was suffering from dissociative reaction. And that's fine. That's a real thing.
Sure.
I get it. But here's what this guy does to prove that.
Yeah.
He puts Candy under hypnosis.
Uh-huh.
And this is where Candy is also learning about this. Learning about this deep-seated trigger that she had because Candy just didn't like being shushed.
Yep.
Who does?
Right.
Let's be real.
Wow. So you're suddenly on Candy's side.
Well, don't even. But like what I'm saying is that does not 40. That being shushed does not equal 41.
No, because the story that we get is that when Candy was 4, and this is a repressed memory that Candy doesn't even know is there.
That when Candy was 4 years old, Candy took a jar and broke it, and some of the glass flew up and hit Candy in the head, and she started bleeding and screaming like a 4-year-old child will do. And her mother, well, she shushed her, told her shh, and told her that what will people think if they hear you screaming?
Her mother is like more concerned with Candy being quiet and not making a scene.
Right.
So she's shushing her. Then she's more concerned with that than helping Candy taking care of her.
Now, I am no expert in repressed memories. I'm not saying how real or not real this is.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about. I know that people disassociate. I completely understand that. It's the aftermath that makes me know that Candy's a monster.
Right.
Because of leaving the baby, because of cleaning up, because of letting Elisa sleep over,
right.
because of lying to everyone for months and months. Like, I'm not discounting the fact that has this happened before, that someone snaps and you don't even know where you are and you black out. Yes, that's trauma, that's panic. I understand that. But it's everything she did after.
Right.
That makes it like, I'm not really, it makes it harder for me to believe that the shushing.
It's also like Betty's going to attack you with an axe.
And it also paints Betty as this evil, like, shh.
Right, yeah.
Like, that is a creepy thing that someone who's totally in control of the situation would do.
Exactly.
So either Betty snapped because of the affair and is like trying to kill you with this axe, but then she had enough control to like do this very triggering thing. Like, Candy, your story doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And that should be no problem, right? Because the jury is going to hear this and know that this is all complete bullshit.
Right, like separately, maybe I could say, no, but all together, this is
absolutely
like the prosecution's right. It is slam dunk, right?
Absolutely.
Wrong, everybody. Wrong.
After a week of testimony, both sides rest and the jury deliberates.
We expected it to be a long deliberation, but it was just a couple hours and the jury came back with a verdict.
The verdict was not guilty by reason of self-defense.
The jury buys it.
The jury's out for like 90 minutes. They thought it was going to be days and days and days.
Because they're like, she's a woman.
I know,
exactly. How is
exactly.
she lifting that axe?
But like, that's my question is like, I would love to hear from the jury and say like, what are you
thinking?
Like, you fully believe. Obviously, I think that Candy's a monster. I think that this was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder, whatever. But like, I guess I can see it. Like, if you're the jury, you would be very confused about why would she beat this woman 48 fucking. She must have snapped.
That's the other thing about it too.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, and again, I'm not an expert. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is an instance where she could snap and then snap out of that being snapped to then lie to everyone.
But then you have to believe that Betty attacked her with an axe, which I just don't believe.
Right. I don't believe that either. But like then she snapped out of it enough to take a shower.
Uh-huh.
I feel like if you snap and then you do this thing, you're sort of like wandering aimlessly and someone finds you in the middle of the road at 12:45 in the afternoon saying, Candy, what the hell happened? And she's like, I don't know. I snapped. I blacked out.
Right.
Like that's not what's happening. She was just manipulating people and lying. Where's the...
I can also see the jury being like, but it also doesn't seem like Candy was that into Alan. So why would she murder her for this man she doesn't even like that much? You know? So I can see a jury saying, I think she did it and I think she's crazy, but there's enough reasonable doubt here for me to say, like, I guess I can't really convict her of like premeditated murder.
But like she should but she's admitted that she did it.
Yes.
So for her, like not even murder too, not even manslaughter, like she just gets off scot-free.
But we also don't get any information here because we do learn there are cases where like it's either guilty and they're getting the electric chair or it's innocent, you know?
Because I mean, that was Texas in the 70s.
Yeah.
She was not, I mean, they put her to, right? Like she'd get a pretty hefty sentence.
100%.
So she's found not guilty by reason of self-defense.
When the verdict was read, there was a roar in the courtroom. Nobody in that courtroom believed that verdict. I don't even know if the defense attorney believed the verdict.
people just cannot believe it.
And they didn't deliberate very long. It's not like the jury agonized over this for days and days. It was like 90 minutes.
It was 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Betty's family just says it was crushing. Like, there was no justice for Betty at all. Like, zero consequences for Betty. Not even anything about leaving the child endangerment.
Right.
Obstruction of justice because you lied. Like, nothing. She got nothing, which is fucking insane.
No, and they say that, like, shortly after the trial, Candy and Pat, her husband and their kids, moved to Georgia. Candy and Pat eventually get a divorce.
Shocking.
She goes back to school and becomes a mental health counselor.
Are you kidding?
I know.
Within months of the verdict, Alan got remarried.
Which is wild because it's not like sometimes these trials are years after, and then that would make a little more sense. This was 4 months after the murder.
And then within a year, he was married.
Yeah.
Again. Alan seems like the type of guy who can't make himself a bowl of cereal.
That is 100% true.
And I think he got married because he needs like a homemaker.
Yep.
He needs an MRS or whatever. Which is so crazy because it's like, I know you're smart, Alan.
Uh-huh.
Like on paper, you made the calculator.
Right. You invented that
famous calculator.
That drug game that made Jillian fail out of high school.
Graphic calculator. Yeah, like whatever. So it's like, but he just can't, he just needs like to be taken care of or whatever.
But like this totally creates a rift within, like he is not getting along with Betty's family.
And like I think more so Betty's family's not getting along with him.
But
they don't like him.
The daughters go and live with Betty's family. Like they leave their own dad.
Yeah, eventually.
What a piece of shit that guy must be.
And I think there was just so much tension between them because it says eventually that Bethany and Elisa went to live with Betty's family. And this is like, I think this is a little bit of a disjointed doc. Like it's very victim focused, which I love, but there are certain things like I wish they would have told us exactly what the charges were so that it's like all or nothing. Things like that.
Yeah.
But we end on Pat, the sister-in-law.
Yes, she's great.
She's great. And she goes,
I personally continue to tell the story because I don't want Candy to have peace. I want the light to be shined on her and her actions, her past, so that she fools no one in the future.
I want the light to be shined on her and her actions and her past, and I don't want her to fool anyone in the future. And like, I don't want Candy to have peace. Like, I just found that so powerful.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're told that the girls go on and have very productive, great lives. They're very close with Betty's side of the family. And Candy, I looked her up, and there's like very little information out there about her.
Yeah, she changed her name, I think. Yeah. I guess smartly.
Right.
But like, I don't want to give her any credit for anything, obviously, because like Pat, I don't want her to know peace either.
No, bye, Candy.
Bye.
Oh, girl, we did People Magazine Investigates.
Candy and Betty. Or, more appropriately, the murder of Betty Gore.
The murder of Betty Gore.
Like, come on.
My God.
I know, so horrible.
Fam, join the Facebook group. Get in there. Hang out with us. I'm in there every day. I'm posting funny, silly things. I'm commenting on everybody's stuff. It's just so fun to, like, make friends. That's where we're connecting with the Salt Lake City Facebook group where they're doing their brunches, and I like to see all the stuff that's going on. It's so great.
Fun. Amazing.
Join us on Patreon. We are adding all these live events. We did Drag Bingo. We're doing it again next month. We're doing a happy hour next month, too, which is going to be so fun.
There's like a magic show happening, I think.
So in March, we're going to do a magic show. I found this amazing magician in Chicago. I'm going to go. I think we're getting a theater, and we're going to do like trick. Like she's going to.
Oh my God.
It's all going to be live on the Pates. It's just going to be like me and her on a stage. You'll be like pinned on the Zoom too.
Okay, great.
So you can like laugh at me and make fun of me for not knowing how things happen.
I just want to pick a card.
Yeah. And fam, I want to hear your ideas. What are more live things like this that we could do? We're working on putting together a live comedy night that we're going to do via Zoom.
Great.
I want to hear all the stuff that you want to do. Drag Bingo is here to stay. The prizes are amazing. And that's just extra stuff. This is the Patreon. It's also where you get one full ad-free bonus episode every freaking week.
Yeah, so it's like the regular feed episodes ad-free, and then all the series like Love Has Won and Natalia Grace and Wild Crime and Bad Vegan, all that stuff.
Love Has Won, which is the culty one from Max. It is wild. It is wild and crazy. And then Natalia Grace, I started to watch episode 1, and I cannot believe what I'm seeing.
It's a mess.
I know.
It's all a mess. It's all a mess, everybody.
What are we doing next?
So we're doing a documentary also on Max called Devil in the Ozarks.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, great. Well, stay tuned for the trailer for that, fam. We love you.
All right, we love you.
Our funny and hilarious outtakes, if there are any. This was crazy.
This was crazy.
All right, we love you.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Amy Harrison, Andrew Harrison's wife. Harrison, what happened? I went to the bathroom in the lounge, and when I opened the door, a guy was standing there with a gun.
This is the story of one of the most evil and dangerous criminals I have ever prosecuted because the person does not at first appear to be that way.
He was right there and nobody knew.
I heard what I thought was someone had fired a rifle.
He took a lot away from us.
Sometimes I still tell myself it's not real, that didn't happen.
I'll never forget what I have seen.
You know, it's just disgusting to think that one man has that much power to do that.
If he's not a psychopath or a sociopath, they're going to have to redefine the term.
Didn't we just do one of these where the guy made his divorce attorney his criminal offense?
Oh, yeah, one of our bonus eps.
Yeah.
The 48 Hours one.
Right.
And then that lawyer was so horrible about women.
Because
and she was a woman.
And she was a woman, yeah. Like, stop doing this. Get real lawyers. She's also a very active member of her local parish. It's the Lucas Methodist Church.
Yeah, and that was sort of like the social aspect of this very small town, right?
Yes.
So like
it's why I would not thrive there.
No.
I don't love a church. I love a church, but I just don't know how the church feels
in
about
like 1977,
me.
I don't know how
In
great
Texas,
it would
I don't know.